Number 11.
Evans, it takes
Number 11. Number 11.
He's got some time
Number 11.
to double off for those.
Number 11.
Up at the 43.
Number 11.
After a pickup of 8. Overall, the philosophy for both these teams right now seems to be to not send a whole bunch of pressure and
has such deep skin, and it shows them pearly white. Just a football has old Jack Parker, and he keeps it out of sight. When that shark bites with
Number 11. Number 11. Number 11. Number 11. Одинадцять. 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 Одинадцять.
for a touchdown.
Одинадцять.
Could that someone be Jack the Knife? All those bombers and the riders, stamps and
Number 11.
lions, grouping on down.
Number 11.
And the lions
Number 11.
close up tight.
Number 11.
Now that
Number 11.
Jack Parker's back in town. Look out, Jack is back.
I've always wondered about this. There was one day we were in Glasgow. We were sort of on our way home, and I remember being on the second or third floor, and I heard this noise from above. It was like boom, 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 boom. What the hell? Apparently, you know what this was about.
Well, it was in Glasgow, and we had some time to ourselves, and I hear this little knock on the door. Quietly sitting in my room, trying to think about our trip back to Winnipeg, and as a result, we're heading out. Well, actually, we weren't going back to Winnipeg. We were going to Moscow from there.
That's right.
Randy Smook knocks at my door, and he asked me very politely if I had any scotch left from our night before. And I said, I might. But he says, yeah, we don't have anything. Wondering if you could share a little bit with me. So, being naive and tired that day, I let him into my room. So as I'm pouring him the little bit of scotch that I have left, the door bursts open with all the other younger dancers.
The rookies. Revenge of the rookies.
Revenge of the rookies. And they are beating me with their pillows, tie me up, hog-tied with my hands and feet together behind my back. I'm lying on the floor screaming for help.
Yeah.
Help Ihor, help Miron, help anybody.
Yeah,
Come
yeah.
and help me, the old guys. And Ihor bursts into the room with a pillow. Miron follows him, and there was just a battle royal going on for a good 5 to 10 minutes. Everybody beating the hell out of each other with these pillows. I'm lying in the middle of the floor screaming, "Don't fall on me because you're going to break my arms and legs." That was it. So after a good laugh, we had a few sips out of my remaining scotch, and it was quite a laughing event.
So you never remember what the motivation was, but it must have been some Revenge of the Rookies after a rookie initiation. Or who knows?
Who knows?
Some spontaneous insanity that tends to break out.
It's something you never forget.
Right on.
Mr. Judge York himself, Judge, you're on. Could you have a word here with Kenner?
Я не розумію, що він до мене каже.
That's Lord Himalayan. I don't understand the Himalayan language, but I'm sure he said something about the show this evening. Brian Luggie! It's Brian Luggie! Brian! Come from USSR to talk to me here. Brian, what have you got to say about tonight's show here in Peterhead?
Well, I think it's going to be a hell of a good show here in Peterhead. I think it's going to be a lot of people because it's well advertised, and I think it's going to be a really, really good show.
I wonder if you understand that you come here for the soccer match. Is that true?
No, I ain't got here for my soccer match. I went to soccer match last night.
I'm going to open a boutique, Brian.
What was that on the boot?
There was a Mugaloo chick. He's making his escape right now.
I'm figuring there should be a lot of people at the match or at the show tonight because there may no football match today.
That was a bit of funny, wasn't it?
I figure the place should be packed today.
That was bloody hilarious. Shall we be moving on here, Gary? Okay, we'll take the rest of this interview in transit. And we're talking to Makaluchak. He's running away from the camera. You can see him in the distance. There he is. There he is. What have you got to say for yourself?
Shut up, you creep, the much.
What we need is more intelligence. We certainly aren't going to find it here, are we? Okay. Oh, you creep.
You know what I was thinking of, Kuzik?
What are you thinking there, Billy?
Opening up a shop around here somewhere.
What would you call it?
I don't know, but it's, look at these cars. Hey, I guess I'm a car part salesman.
Take a good look at that, Gary. That's good for a news clip in here. You see Albert's Hay there. He's making a fine killing on killing people and stealing their cars. That's a bloody joke. It's a bloody crime, I tell you. And we'll be moving along in transit here. You can see the group in the distance hitting for the backstage. We understand it's a regular sardine can stage, so we'll have to call it in, and we'll be finishing off the interview since interviewees have run off. So from Bill and Pat, we'd like to say bye and thank you for everything, Gary Kinnischuk. Bye now. Bye now. Bye now.
Number 11.
Evans, it takes
Number 11. Number 11.
He's got some time
Number 11.
to double off of those.
Number 11.
Up at the 43.
Number 11.
After a pickup of 8. Overall, the philosophy for both these teams right now seems to be to not send a whole bunch of pressure and
Woman jumping has such teeth here, and it shows them pearly white. Just a football has old Jack Potter, and he keeps it out of sight. When a shark bites with
Number 11. Number 11. Number 11. Number 11. 11, 11, 11, 11,
For a touchdown.
11.
Could that someone be Jack the Knife? All those bombers and the
Number 11.
riders, steps in line,
Number 11.
grouping on down.
Number 11.
And the line
Number 11.
is close up tight.
Number 11.
Now that
Number 11.
Jack the Knife is back in town. Look out, Jack is back.
After the second appearance at the Festival of Youth Orchestras and Performing Arts in Scotland, we traveled to Ukraine to participate in a dance workshop under the direction of the world-renowned Rusalka folk ensemble in Kiev. We toured and performed in Ternopil and Lviv.
Oh my God, yeah, the laughter. Scotland for me was the laughter, and Ukraine was
business.
the passion
Yeah.
on so many levels, right?
Yeah.
Dancing with Rusalka.
Yeah.
For Ukraine, for Rodina, that was all about passion. So it went from these two kind of extremes of such laughter. Everything was funny.
So the thing about Rusalka, a long history of singing on the bus, making up songs for any particular occasion. Before, when I just first started the group, though, the singers weren't all like terrific. And I recall one incident, and this stuck with me for life, where we went to Christmas caroling to Walter Klemkew's house. And so it's Rusalka, чи приймайте кульки таке, and Walter said, I'll give you money, just don't sing. Is that a real story? That's a real story. So that leads to we're in Moscow, and we've arrived at the Moscow airport, waiting for our flight to Kiev, and the intimidation starts. They lock us into a small room, and they start feeding us information, saying, well, none of the flights are going. There's a storm. Nothing can fly into Kiev, and you can hear planes leaving every 15 minutes. A plane is leaving, and so we're doing what we do. We're adapting. People are playing cards, starting to hang around. Well, then we pull out the songbook, and we start just howling out Ukrainian tunes from the Zaspіваємо собі songbook.
In Moscow?
In Moscow, in the Moscow area. It was the Moscow airport, and we're singing these Ukrainian songs at the top of our lungs. And I'm pretty sure that contributed to us being held in that room until about 4 or 5 in the morning, when they finally surrendered and said, and so they put us on the plane, and so we arrived in Kiev very early in the morning, and there's other stories about Rusalka after that, but that was the story about the Moscow airport.
Now, I know there was a long delay. We made up for not knowing what's going on, because our flight, for some reason, going to Kiev, was delayed to a point where we ended up sitting around in circles and drinking our duty-free liquor.
Yeah, like the story.
It was a chance for us to release too, because we got past customs. We weren't sure what the delay was, whether it was a storm or whatever else, whether they were just still vetting us and not sure whether they're allowing us all to come in. I mean, we had the experience prior to that when the group was in Rusalka, and Harry Shkorik was detained and not allowed to come into the country because he didn't have his passport, and he wasn't a Canadian citizen yet. So we knew that could happen.
Going through customs in Moscow, some people got hassled. Linda had her whole suitcase ripped apart. John had to read from his Bible, and Pete got his jeans taken away.
Okay, Luke, what do you remember about us going to Ukraine and waiting in Moscow airport?
And waiting in Moscow airport in a little tiny room that wasn't designed for all of us.
Yeah.
I just want to remember that, Ted Comar, thank goodness he takes his accordion with him and never parts. But I think, I don't know how many songs Ukrainian.
We went to the whole book.
I think we went through the whole book. So the Zaspіваємо Україна, Zaspіваємо
Собі, yeah.
And it was just to have Ted there, and I think he knew every song out of the book.
Right.
And so most of us, I don't know how we sneaked those books in, but yeah, it was just a treat being able to sing songs, pass the time, and eventually get to Kiev.
Ой, там роман були, пасе сюда, рудая. Ой, там роман були, пасе сюда, рудая, Катерина воду несе, ай-яй-яй. Ой, там роман були, пасе сюда, рудая, Катерина воду несе, ай-яй-яй. Ой, Романе, Романочку, сюда, рудая. Ой, Романе, Романочку, оп, сюда, рудая, не лий води на сорочку, ай-яй-яй. Ой, Романе, Романочку, оп, сюда, рудая, не лий води на сорочку, ай-яй-яй. Вода, вода. Роман русий, як чорнява, сюда, рудая. Роман русий, як чорнява, сюда, рудая, звінчаємся, буде пара, ай-яй-яй. Роман русий, як чорнява, сюда, рудая, звінчаємся, буде пара, ай-яй-яй.
I will not buy this record, it is scratched. I'm sorry? I will not buy this record, it is scratched. No, this is a tobacconist's. My hovercraft is full of eels. What? My hovercraft is full of eels. Do you want? Do you want? Want? Do you want to come back to my place, bouncy, bouncy? That'll be 6 shillings, please. If I said you had a beautiful body, would you hold it against me? I am no longer infected. May I? Yeah. It costs 6 shillings.
Okay, Brenda, tell me about your experience as someone who didn't speak Ukrainian. I really didn't have a lot of experience with Ukrainian background, and we're going to Ukraine. Did you get any help interpretation help from any of the kids in the group?
Oh, 100%. I mean, they were so helpful all the time. I mean, the first thing I found out was the 2 keywords, divchata for girls and hlapchi. I found out that the cabbage rolls was actually lopzi. So that was Holopzi, thank you. But when we were flying overseas, I'm practicing these phrases because I want to look like in case I get into trouble.
Yeah.
What do I do? So Brian Lukey,
very helpful,
came up to me and said, well, if you're ever lost, say this. And he says it in Ukrainian, and he tells me, hi, I'm lost. So I'm practicing this phrase because I figured I better get something under my belt. So I found out later, when I actually was lost, it meant, hi, I'm lost, want a screw.
Nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Straight out of the Monty Python translation book. Well done. Aeroflot, Linda.
Traveling with Aeroflot was an experience one will never forget. Unlike traveling on other European airlines where everything is just so pristine, your greeting, your service, all of the comforts within the cabin. Not so much for Aeroflot. The airline hostesses wore 4 trail uniforms. One was brown, one was purple, and their disposition was really quite sour when you got your seat on the plane. Seats were not all facing the pilot. Some of them were facing backwards and some of them faced forwards. The seat belts, well, not so much either. They were kind of like a loose strap. Some of the tables that came down would stay down. They didn't go up. And of course, the comfort of your ride. When we finally did get on the plane after many hours and hours of waiting and hearing planes flying, but oh no, there's a storm. We can't leave yet. Well, yeah, shall we carry on? But taking off was very much like a vertical experience. And unlike other airlines where you slowly kind of decelerate, you lose altitude, you know you're going to be landing soon, not so much. You actually do a nosedive straight onto the tarmac. And
They just cut the engines.
Some of us are actually thrown into the seat in front of us, and then the pilot just rams that brake or whatever he uses to stop the plane. So I don't think any of us lost any teeth, but boy, I think some of our foreheads got a little bit.
And it was the bus driver from our trip.
He was awake by the
I do recall coming on to the plane for the first time, and there was some colonel that was passed out on the middle of the aisle, so to get to your seat you had to step over him. I didn't see the rank. And then the stewardess would give you something that they called sock, and I thought, well, it's a good reason to call it sock, 'cause it tastes like some juice that came out of someone's sock. But also in terms of the landing, and now I think they must have had like student pilot on this side. But as was mentioned, they would do the nosedive, and you're sitting there, and food trays are flying and this kind of thing. And I mentioned earlier, I was from Dauphin. I've never been on a plane before, so I didn't think anything of it. I thought, oh, this is... I turned around and Myron Petro was behind me and says, is this kind of like normal? And Petro was white as a ghost. He was just wet with fear and his fingers are in the chair. I go, oh, I guess that's not where it's supposed to go. So thank God I was a rookie.
We've been to Nova Scotia, Chicago, danced at the Olympics, performed with Royal Winnipeg Ballet, and then the best, Ukraina. Of my forefathers, seeing how beautiful that country truly is. My father had told me about the rolling hills, the color of the grasses, the color of the sky, and I saw it. and I believe him now.
So speaking of customs, you had a bit of a story about selecting the right customs official.
Yeah. Well, we were approaching the custom gates and we saw, okay, several men custom agents and one woman custom agent. And we're thinking to ourselves, oh, that woman custom agent, she's going to be an easier one, right? So some of us drift over to her line. And okay, after the first person in that line got a grilling like we didn't believe, we looked at each other and we start drifting over to the men custom agents. And I was like, well, not, everything you see, well, sometimes it's not what you think it is.
Yeah.
And so like when we saw that, it says, no, we're in the wrong line.
Good one.
So Petruccio, one of the things before we left on the trip, I think it was Bill Balan who had arranged that each one of us would carry a Ukrainian Bible with us because, again, this is another item that wasn't allowed in Ukraine. And so, in essence, we were smuggling Bibles. What was your experience?
Actually, people were a bit concerned about it. I thought I could take advantage of that because, funny, everybody's parents looked at this tour a little differently.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure I want you to go because you may never come back.
Right.
I don't know what will happen to you when you're over there. And my parents they'd been in constant mail contact with our family there, but hadn't seen them, like, since the turn of the century.
Yeah.
So there was, you're going no matter what, and we really hope nothing happens. But in all of these back and forths that they had with this family, the one thing that was clearly like gold for all generations, the jeans were the big thing for the younger generation, was knit cap, high quality knit cap to bring over. And so I had like a couple of bundles of these small bundles, yellow, red, green, that I think I'd gotten someplace, maybe Mitchell Fabrics, they were really high quality. And so I couldn't put them all in mine, so I asked the Lenyuk sisters if they could each carry some. And of course, Patty was up for anything, and Joni, who will go and report herself if she dropped gum on them, right? Like if she stuck gum under her table, back in immaculate, she'd come back 20 years later and say, okay, I can't sleep anymore. So eventually convinced them, and I said, I've got a plan that hopefully this will get you guys through easier. And Joni was still sweating, and Patty was saying, I trust you, let's try this.
Yeah.
So I put myself ahead of them in this lineup where all of these, Russian batons, autobatons were waiting there and making sure we saw their dogs and saw their guns. And said, what is this Bible doing here in his broken English? And I said, I read it every night. He said, that's why you're bringing it. And that's why everybody, I said, I didn't know anybody else had any. But I'm bringing it because I don't go to sleep with it unless I do it. He said, really? He threw it down in front of me. Read it. I said, okay. And then I just started going line by line by line. And then he says, okay. And I said, no. And then, we're working through to the part where, that they respond to this act that Jesus is doing. And he says, that's enough already. And I said, no, we're just getting to the good part. And I just pissed him right off. So we went through, and it worked, because the Lenyuks came up after, and the first thing they did was pull out their Bibles, which is what I told them to. And he said, no, anything to, go. And so the two of them got through it. So I got all my men knit cap.
Okay, all right.
Thanks in some way to Bill Balan for distributing all those Bibles.
Because some got confiscated, but that was good.
Bill Balan, rest in peace.
Yeah.
We're like I said, there was some concerns about going to USSR, and he wants us to do smuggling. Oh yeah, another thing that can go wrong.
But we did it.
Okay, Anne, so here we are. We're going to the Soviet Union. And we've heard all kinds of horror stories, and it's particularly about customs and the security guards and the army. We didn't know what to expect. What was your experience?
Well, fortunately, I'd had some experience having traveled, on my own. So I'd had experience with customs, but this would have been different because this, of course, was Soviet Union.
Yeah.
Not quite the same that you would encounter anywhere else.
Right.
So we were all apprehensive. We all knew that, people like to be, if you bribe somebody, everything will go nice and smooth for you.
Yeah.
And my mom had suggested that I have a pair or two of pantyhose in my pocket.
Okay.
And pantyhose in my pocket.
Yeah.
And she says, well, you just, you might just like slip it into somebody's hand if you need to.
Yeah.
You don't need to. But anyway, I did. And because, of course, we had spent 2 weeks in Scotland, and then, we were fine in Scotland, but we were going, and now we were getting scared. And I know I was, and we were all sort of, very much more afraid of what was it we were encountering. So yeah, take every precaution. Pantyhose in my pocket? Yeah, there'll be 2 pairs, 1 in each pocket. And so I went, and my experience at customs was actually very easy. I had no issue. I don't honestly remember if I did slip pantyhose.
If you even reached for your pocket or not.
I don't remember, but I do remember I had
You were ready.
I had a pair of pantyhose in each pocket.
Nicely
so,
done.
And it didn't matter because I thought, well, it's not a lady, it's a man. But, a man will take home a pair of pantyhose.
Exactly,
and it's going to be a big hit. So I don't honestly remember if I did share with them, but I was ready for that. But my experience both going in and leaving was absolutely, not a problem. It was
Sounds
easy.
like a great title for a book or movie or a song. Pantyhose in my pocket.
Pantyhose in my pocket, exactly.